Welcome back. So this is our fifth and final panel, and picking up really on the conversations we've been having all day, we're going to be looking at growth. And I think it's really interesting. I was having a quick conversation with someone in the break that very much within the social economy sector, we sit in different places. We sit with Department for Communities, we sit with departments for businesses. We have different ways of speaking in different kinds of environments that we have to navigate if we want to take advantage of all the opportunities that are available to us. So I think that's how I think we need to think about this final session, growth. So I'm going to introduce the panel. This is the final set of introductions. And first of all, I'd like to introduce Dan, who's the chair, Jan Cairns, who is policy person with West Midlands Combined Authority, and you work on business. So you actually, the kind of terminology around growth is absolutely at the core of everything you do, which is going to be, which is great. So you can help us to understand it. Next person I'm going to introduce is Joy. Thank you, Joy, for coming along. Joy Doal. She's the CEO of Anawim. And Anawim is an amazing social economy organisation. Joy leads a women's centre that works with over 1,000 women per year. 2,000. Oh, 2,000, it's gone up. I was looking at your LinkedIn. It's growth, that's fantastic. Well, that's what I mean, yeah. You've been 22 years in the role, ish, and you were the founder? No, not founder. 40th birthday. 40th birthday, well, I hope we get an invite. That would be lovely. You bring a huge experience of navigating sector changes, income generation, and the challenges of leading an important social business. I'm sure you're going to have lots to say in terms of this panel. Next person I want to meet is David Abosch, who on the very early stages of his journey came along to our BSEC Social Economy Forum meetings, and you were finding your way through the sector and finding out how it worked. And so it's amazing that in terms of your journey that you're here today and you're going to talk about what you've been doing. So David is the CEO of Recognition Circular and is passionate about sustainability and digital inclusion, and that's really the focus of his social economy organisation. But he brings to the sector a lengthy background in digital transformation and a huge knowledge around the whole kind of technology agenda, which is brilliant. And obviously it's great to have a new organisation that's working in that way. And you've worked with global brands, and you advise on the circular economy as well. And then finally, I'd like to introduce Ifor, and BSEC works quite closely with Loconomy, and he is the CEO of Loconomy, and he started his new social business also 2 years ago, and it's a community benefit society. So we're beginning to see cooperative businesses coming through into the sector, and I thought it was really important that we had a really good example that could talk about how he's navigating the development and growth of his business in the current climate. But he's got a huge background in terms of strategic planning. I first came across Ifor when he was working for Birmingham City Council, but he's also passionate about place-based working, and that kind of informs the development of his business. So would you give a warm round of applause for this panel? Thank you.
This is the end of the afternoon, so I'm conscious that lots of people's brains may also, like Jeff's, have turned into mush. So try and keep it pacey, which is unfortunate because as an English literature graduate, I would love to delve into a postmodern conversation about words, definitions, growth, etc. But maybe I'll keep it lighter touch. So as Sarah said, yes, I am the policy manager for business at the Combined Authority. So there's a small team in the economics policy section. So I have a colleague who leads on innovation. And we put together lots of the words in the West Midlands growth plan, which the Mayor published back in July, June. And yes, it's in the title, growth plan. But I suppose the conversation we want to have now is, well, what do we mean by growth? So in a minute, I'm going to ask each of the panel to introduce themselves, talk about their organisations, what growth means to them, what works for them, what we could do with more of, etc. But before, just a kind of a quick intro to me and what I do and my take on growth. So my name's Daniel. Daniel from the Bible went into the lion's den. So I'm going to maybe talk something about slightly controversial and talk about growth in a room full of social entrepreneurs. So my mother is Polish. She left Poland when she was 21. Why? Because she had to escape, because her life was awful under communism. And her grandmother effectively found her older Englishman and said, right, you're marrying him and send us back the money, please. And that's what she did. She was 20, actually. Others in the room come from that same background. So I have family members, and when you say communism to them, their eyes go red and steam starts coming out their head, and they say, never again, never again. We love capitalism. So yes, growth to them means more money, because when they were growing up, they didn't have any, because the economy was focused on not doing those things, about delivering other outputs, counting beans, counting tractors, and things like that, rather than pursuing profit, and their lives were miserable. So that's kind of my opening statement. But so some of us, either Sarah, Carolina, some of us and Joe from the previous panel, we were on a session we were called a huddle, and we were talking about lots of different ideas, lots of different systems, and we came up with the concept of the dandelion economy. So if you think about growth could be anything. Weeds grow, for instance, but what we call a weed provides plentiful food for insects. It's part of a healthy and thriving ecosystem. So growth has many forms. There could be what could be considered negative consequences of growth, but that actually might be just as beneficial. So that's one thing to say. And the second thing to say was around, we live in a world where, so again, I think it was Joe was talking about various different crises. Some of those crises have very real consequences, such as a more belligerent Russia, who is sending missiles into Ukraine. How does the social economy respond to that? Maybe it can't. It's not going to develop things like drones and missiles, etc. So there are parts of the economy which maybe the social economy can't do. So that's kind of my opening gambit, kind of thing. Yes, I love all your work, and I'm here to support you. But if we had an economy which only delivered those social things and environmental things, there were going to be gaps. So I'm here to kind of represent a balance, to try and help you along that journey. And I'll stop there.
So Anawim is a charity, and we've been in Birmingham for nearly 40 years, as I said, and we support more than 2,000 women, and we've got more than 70 staff. Politicians and policymakers always talk about growth, and we do too, but not for profit, but for social value. The women we work with often have multiple issues: substance misuse, experiences of crime as victims and offenders, domestic abuse, homelessness, debt, reliance on benefits, or sometimes completely excluded from them by their immigration status, leaving them vulnerable to the dark economy of sex work and shoplifting. They get labelled as hard to reach, difficult to engage, violent, resistant, and further excluded and alienated. When you work with women who have layers of disadvantage, it's easy to continually react to the present crisis. Current trauma-informed practice teaches us to say, instead of saying what was done to you, to what happened to you. But we need to go further back to talk about what happened to you initially. Child abuse and family breakdown are often the root cause of what you go on to see, as the woman tells their story. It's systems that compound and make things worse. When Anawim started when I started at Anawim in 2003, it was very small. We had a couple of part-time staff, volunteers, and Catholic sisters. They cared very deeply about the women, And at that time, obviously, Walsall Heath was a red light district. And those women who came had many, many children, and we had a busy creche, and they put on lots of day trips and holidays. But they had absolutely no infrastructure, very little funding, and no direction. And they were tired, discouraged, and ready to give up. So that's what I came into. I started by sitting down with each of the 41 women who attended, and that's how many women were actually attending at that time, to learn about how they'd arrived, what they'd got out of coming, and where they wanted to get to. I discovered that not every woman had come through street outreach. Some had come through probation. One sister, Catholic sister, was working separately then in the then local prison, Brock Hill. I went with her and saw a totally different bunch of women caught in sex work, but also caught in a system which made their experience of it completely different. They were in a cycle, arrested at the weekend, caught on Monday, and a couple of weeks in prison, sometimes for their own good. It was pointless, distressing, expensive, and damaging. I started talking to probation, and we set up alternatives to custody and built Anawim into a women's centre with other agencies co-located, such as a methadone programme. And it worked. Reoffending rate was as low as 3%. Women changed their lives, they got their children back, they moved on. Hope was high. The government adopted most of Baroness Corsten's recommendations, and we thought we'd see women's prisons closing. I won't get into what went wrong, but if I say the name Chris Grayling, it might give you a clue. Now, but nowadays, we have partnerships with the NHS. We still deliver community sentences, but nowhere near back to those heady days of 2014. We've grown from a £200,000 unconstituted project to an independent charity with a turnover of just over 2 million. I'm a visionary, a practical solution person, but I know I need others to implement the stuff that I find irritating and boring, such as policies and procedures, IT systems, HR, GDPR, supervision and appraisals, all of which I find really boring, and they're not my forte. So you have to know your strengths, and you have to know your gifts, and you have to know to bring other people in. Challenges come, systems and policies trip us up, but we have to keep to our values. Be tenacious and bloody-minded, determined. We have a criminal justice system that is in deep crisis, as you can see all around you, in need of radical reform. It needs vision and courage to focus on rehabilitation, but punishment always shouts louder. The public can be persuaded to take less punitive approaches, but politicians are scared of popularist media responses. It's easy to exclude, alienate, and other people, but this will only produce negative, expensive, and unworkable situations, compounding their problems. Restoration, education, inclusion, caring for, upskilling, making people part of the solution, creating community and social capital cost less and produce far more in the longer term. But as the saying goes, when the US sneezes, we catch a cold. Let's vaccinate ourselves now so that we don't catch their rowback on diversity, women's rights, welfare, healthcare, penal systems, to name a few.
Hi everyone. I don't like to say no to an invitation to speak at an event like this, particularly one from Sarah. But I feel a bit of an imposter speaking about growth as someone who runs a startup. So Recognition Circuit has been going for a little over 2 years. And for most of that time, like any startup, we've been preoccupied with survival. And I think we are moving into a phase where we're starting to think a little bit more about how we grow, and having to think a little bit less about how we're able to survive. So that's comfortable. And as a social enterprise, we have also the challenge of working out how we marry social purpose with our business model. And then in terms of what we do for that business model, so Recognition Circular, we train people and teach people how to repair and refurbish computers. We work quite a lot with people who are pretty far from the employment market, so people with learning disabilities, people who are struggling with homelessness, people who are long-term unemployed. So we give them a skill, and we work closely with local employers to help them get them into a job. And if we can, we try to employ people ourselves. But there's where we need growth, because the more we can grow our revenue, the more people we can employ, the more people we can train, etc. So in terms of our course, yes, we were looking at getting people into jobs. Everyone on our course gets a laptop that they need to repair and they keep at the end of the course. And then our other kind of business model is around selling and leasing laptops. So Josie, if there is a directory of social economy businesses and other social economy businesses want to buy or lease from us, we definitely welcome that. And the other service we are offering is a computer refurbish as a service. So for businesses who are replacing their laptops every 3 or 4 years, instead of replacing it, they can send them to us. We'll put them into an as-new condition. They can have them back and put them back into the business. But yeah, I guess in terms of how we grow that and how we grow the impact, that isn't yet something we've quite worked out. In terms of growing the impact, I think, you know, we're wanting to get to a model where if we can provide a laptop for someone in the community for every laptop we sell, I think we're going in the right direction. We definitely have a device poverty issue in this region. There's nearly 1 in 4 residents in Birmingham who don't have access to a computer at home. We also are living in a country that has the second most e-waste per capita in the world. So this is really just a distribution problem to fix. So apart from kind of hard graft and relentless networking, you know, how are we going to grow? Perhaps if you ask me back here in a couple of years, I'll tell you how we did it, but I don't know yet.
You can ask for ideas from the audience.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Well, hi everybody. Like you, David, we've just had our second birthday. It's 2 years and 1 month since Loconomy started, and I was wondering, why did I found Loconomy with founding directors at the age of 64, with an aspiration to work into my 70s. I think it goes back to when I first came to Birmingham in 2005, just around the same time as Carolina, and I worked with Pauline in Northfield. And in Northfield, we had the crisis with Longbridge, with 6,500 people losing their jobs overnight. And that we did a lot of work over 3 years there to mitigate that. And I think we did a good job. But that always stayed with me, the importance of keeping work and accessing work and having good jobs as the foundation of what is a strong local economy. Fast track into 2016, I retired from the city and I went to do community work in Castle Vale with the Community Housing Association. And was enjoying the experience for a couple of years, and then the director asked me to pay for the services that we were delivering. So I thought that's okay, we'll do that. And we focused very much on employment work, local employment work, and that was at a time of lockdown. And obviously, a lot of people in hospitality and other sectors were losing their jobs. And what we did was to use our community connections in Castle Vale and in North East Birmingham generally to connect those people who had lost work with people, and this was in the NHS, who needed people to be working in that service. And we self-funded that through consultancy work, and that seemed to do the trick. So we carried on doing that. We got some funding, and it became a very successful program. It was one of the things that helped the NHS found ICAM, the entry-level jobs program, that created 750 jobs for people from deprived communities right across Birmingham and beyond. So we were happily delivering that, but I decided to retire again. However, the team that had been delivering that program and also our schools work were so good that the Pioneer Group wanted to refocus on the immediate neighbour that didn't want to work in East Birmingham. So we founded Loconomy partly to carry on delivering those RIFs that we'd been delivering for 3 or 4 years so successfully through that team. So we created a benefit. We decided to go for a benefit society because we wanted to lock in, our assets locally. We wanted to report to communities, not shareholders. And since then, we've been growing a membership base slowly. We've got 5 iconic organisations from East Birmingham who have joined the Loconomy family over the last 2 years. People like Dream Chaser Go, amazing organisations. And we want to start delivering services and involving them in the work that we do and supporting our membership base. So that's why we went for a mutual model. And we have a board meeting tonight, and we're talking about expanding our membership base. And we heard that this morning around the importance of networks like BCAN. Well, developing a similar approach through a mutual model, I think, can be beneficial. And I'm sure that there's enough space in this city for networks like that to succeed. So we've delivered about 15 projects in 2 years. It's been intense. We only have 1 member of staff, and I share Isa with Sarah. So she's the only member of the organisation, but we have 20 associates and the membership who deliver those projects. So they've done some great worked with 300 pupils over the last 2 years through the Partnerships for People and Place program. George from City Ready over there is evaluating the final stages of that, and hopefully we'll be saying positive things on the outcomes that the coach mentors have delivered with 120 NEETs over the last 12 months. We had a conference here 2 years ago with pupils, and we had another one in the Rep earlier this year. And taking young people out of East Birmingham to inspire them around the possibilities around work is amazing to see. And we want to carry on with that and with our work with entry-level jobs. Carolina, this morning you mentioned the work that we did in East Birmingham with, 23 community organisations to grow an appetite and to grow agency of community organisations so that they can actually shape what inclusive growth means, so that they can make demands on developers and shape the story and the narrative, and to make sure that those shiny buildings that we're seeing in the city and have seen over the last 10 years are more than that, that they actually make a difference and impact on the index of multiple deprivation, which is shown that in the locality report, 88% of neighbourhoods are suffering the same way as they were when it was last done. We need to do something about it, and we need to use the levers of growth to make a change for people who live in those communities and right across the city. So that's our mission, but it's something that Loconomy needs to work with a range of different social economy organisations, with a range of different institutions, and with the private sector, with businesses, to really begin to make a change, so that next time we have an IMD in 4 years' time, that 88% figure will have shifted a bit. But it's going to be a long journey, and I think there are some major opportunities with, for instance, Carolina mentioned this morning, the £4 billion investment in the sports quarter, similar but smaller investment in the energy quarter, the knowledge quarter, and also other investments across the city. It isn't just about East Birmingham, it's also about the city as a whole and the region as a whole. And let's get out of the shadow of other cities that have good PR, somewhere north up the M6. We can do it in Birmingham. We can grow this economy. We can tackle those needs by working together, by growing our agency. And for me, it's probably been the best 2 years of my professional life, although the most challenging, because when you have nothing when you start, it's incredibly difficult, but actually the mission makes it worthwhile. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, panel. So what I took from that are that growth has different meanings for all of you. So you could talk about growth in impact, whereas for Joy, a growth in vulnerable women isn't clearly a good thing. So it's actually, growth in, I guess, effectiveness and efficiency, working more productively. And with you, David, I guess it's growth in negative aspects of the economy, as in e-waste. That's an opportunity for you. So it's kind of turning that into a positive and capturing some of the byproducts, like you say. So getting people into jobs, getting people into learning as a result of that, I guess, inefficiency and waste in the economy. So all of which we could call growth in some way. So that's teed up the questions from the audience nicely. Thank you. So does anyone have any questions? And I can come out with the microphone. If not, I can start. Don't worry. Oh, Josie.
Hi, David. Do you know about the 100% Digital Coalition partnership across the whole of the West Midlands?
I know of the West Midlands Digital Coalition, and there were a number of calls last year or earlier this year, but I haven't heard anything recently.
I know there's recent meetings, and a lot of the city councils are now buying tech that's been recycled. So it might be worth approaching some of the city councils, because I know Wolverhampton Council buy recycled tech. So that was all.
Yes, thanks.
Thanks, Josie. Oh.
This is a question based on what David said and might involve Sarah as well, but could we say that for the social economy, survival is growth, because our definition of what matters isn't the same as big corporates and the public sector? So I think the fact that you've survived is great, and the networking is that you do is amazing, and you offer services to people, and you kind of are a one-stop shop for a lot of things. You're not just doing one thing. And I think that's the nature of a social economy. We're creative. We see opportunities and we grab them. And Joy and Ifor have done the same. So I think we need to not be so hard on ourselves about growth not being in the same trajectory as other setups.
So the reason that I asked you to come along is when I first met you, it was kind of a twinkle in your eye and an idea, and you were kind of asking people about what to do and how to go about it. And now you're sitting here 2 years after that, and you've got a sustainable organisation, and that's to be celebrated. So you've well deserved your place here. And actually we need to recognise that the journey to start and sustain a social economy organisation is really tough. So well done.
Thanks.
My question's for Ifor. 'Cause I think you mentioned that you'd set up as a community benefit society, and a lot of social enterprises set up as a kick. And I was just wondering, what was the decision factor between going for the community-based society rather than a kick?
Well, initially, if I'm being truly honest, I was looking to set up as a kick. And I started filling in the forms. But one of the potential trustees I was working with persuaded me, Ian Ellis, with many people have worked with Ian, that this would be a better model. And I listened to him. And tonight he's talking passionately at our board meeting about growing our membership, about mutual values, about doing share issues and so on. And whilst I would have appreciated some of the flexibilities possibly that a kick could have provided, because there's a lot more you have to service, just in terms of bureaucracy with a benefit society. But I think I've got a hunch that in the long term, that it will be a fantastic vehicle for bringing people together in a network, whether that's working together, delivering programs, or offering benefits and knowledge to those organizations. But it does create more work, but I'm fine with that. And also, it was easier to actually, in the end, apply in terms of the form for a benefit society. And again, that's a bit of honesty.
Thank you.
So have I.
Okay, sorry. So, Joy, I'm just wondering, £2 million turnover's a lot of money. How do you generate your income?
Any way we can. Sometimes they pimp me out. Charitable trusts used to be our biggest thing. Now contracts are probably slightly higher than charitable trusts. But yeah, we've just worked really hard to have a fundraising strategy that recognises everything: individual giving, community giving. We've worked hard over the last 2 years to really get involved in our community, because we did find that we were very well known nationally, but not very well known locally. And so we've worked hard to sort of make contact with those organisations locally, and it's starting to bear fruit. So little, sewing shops having an event which raised £4,000 a couple of weekends ago, amazing, and things like that, and just individual giving, growing that. Because it's unrestricted funds, which anyone who runs a charity knows that if unrestricted funds are worth more and more, way more than restricted funds. So any that we can get in that way is great. But yeah, contracts is now probably bigger than, and that's PCC and MOJ and people like that. And so we're a bit scared with the PCC going.
And then, so my job is I'm in the world of designing business support program along with Charles and others at the CA. So in terms of your experience, what has worked? So Ifor was talking about procurement, for instance. So what do you think are the main sources of support to help you grow?
I think business support, I'm booked in for some business support very shortly, and I'm looking forward to it. So yeah, after 2 years, I'm really looking forward to that, because it's hard graft. And so, thinking beyond grants, thinking about contracts, thinking about, which we've had 1 or 2, thinking about social investment and so on, it's a lot to get hold of. It's a lot to take your board through. There's different risks with different funding avenues, but we know we need to diversify, so we need advice on that. So, yeah, it's absolutely essential.
So that sounds like advice and guidance you're tapping into. Okay. Yep. What about you, David?
So if I'm honest, we haven't really seen the support yet. But I mean, if we think of ourselves as a business, we'd like to see local government as a customer potentially, and we'd also like to see how we can leverage public sector procurement for social value to deliver an impact for people in our region. And that's what support could look like, but we haven't yet seen it.
I think for us, procurement is a world that is we're entering into more and more, and it's a difficult world. But I think for us, a lot of collaboration. I mean, we fed into lots of different things like. They do a state of the sector thing every year, which we always go into, and feed into commissioners the way that sometimes they set us all up in competition with each other instead of helping us to collaborate. So we feed into that sort of thing. I mean, I think portals are just a pain in the bum, aren't they? I mean, the way that you have to go into all these different portals and they're all different, and oh my God. So yeah, they're a bit of a nightmare, but some of them,
Doctor Who.
yeah, some of them are better than others, and some move across now.
Things like Bravo, so procurement.
Yeah, like the Jagger and the PCC one. The PCC one was probably the worst. It was like 4 different portals that you had to go through in order to get to one, and then oh my God, and you couldn't get to the second one till you'd done the first one, and and when you're trying to work with partners as well, and you've got to put their due diligence in as well, you're waiting for theirs, and you can't put yours in. Nightmare. Yeah, they could simplify things a lot.
What makes me laugh is the reason why people use portals is because they try and level the playing field by making it really difficult for everyone. Brilliant, thank you. Any other questions? Oh, Mel. And then you.
Thanks, Dan. It's Mel here from Better Society Capital. So, having spent a lot of time, in the early days, people just talking about growth, and again, always wanting organisations to just be bigger. But I also get frustrated that I see great business models in different parts of the UK. Because actually, if I can't find a business model, I think it's a great opportunity for a business. And there was a lot of conversation about franchising, social franchising at one stage, which doesn't seem to have gone anywhere. But how do we, I suppose my question is, how do we, in the West Midlands, think about the business models that we know work really well in other geographies and try and build on that? Because there is uniqueness, and that's important, but we know some of these business models work really well. So I'll give you an example. I went to Seagulls. Has anybody heard of Seagulls? It's a paint reuse centre. Now, as far as I know and they know, they're the only one. And they basically take tins of paint and stop them going to landfill. Here's just one example. But it's a fantastically successful business model, and they've taken investment to grow, etc. So back to my question, why hasn't social franchising, you think, been a route to growth?
That is an amazing question. Thank you. Anyone want to try and answer that?
I'm going to check out with the chat stuff.
Look it up.
So I was when I was at ISC, I was involved in trying to roll out social franchising. So it was quite a long time ago, and I had a most unfortunate personal experience when I decided that ISE should take on complete mission drift, an aquarium maintenance social franchise. So you can see the similarity between fish and business support here, But I thought the logic was, and the reason I did it was, and I persuaded the board it was a good idea, because I said, if we can do it, we can learn how it works, then we can more effectively explain to other people how it works. But it didn't work, because the people who did, it was a social business that was operating down in the southwest, and the people who did the due diligence on social franchising, who set it up as a franchise, didn't take into account the passion and commitment of the owner of that social business. And you couldn't replicate that in ISC, a business support organisation, where we didn't really know anything about fish. So I think it's like any business idea, There's key things that you need for running a business, and passion and motivation are absolutely at the heart. And so it didn't work.
Great answer to a great question. But did anyone else want to comment on that question? So
I can add something, or I can.
Okay.
It's not necessarily an answer about franchising, but I think there was a conversation this morning about assets and infrastructure, and I think in terms of assets, we've more been looking at, I guess, intangible assets, intellectual capital, copyright, that sort of thing. So the training that we offer, how can we have that as a model that can be delivered either remotely or delivered elsewhere? We hadn't specifically thought about as a franchise, but that's, we have got an asset which is our know-how, but how do we use that, and how do we capitalize on that is maybe where we're thinking at the moment. Is we're not quite sure what direction to go in there.
Thank you. So we had one last question. Mel, I'll talk to you later about venture studios. Okay.
It's another comment about franchises. So Community Wood Recycling is a franchise type organisation that covers a lot of the country. In our area, we've got the Wood Shack, and I know there's lots of other similar businesses within that franchise. I was thinking about you, David. There are other people that do something quite similar to you around the country. And another model is sort of ganging up, where you've got a fantastic passion, as do Green Machine, as do, can't remember the name of the company in the Black Country, but there are lots of people who do something similar about recycling. The cleaners around here, so Jericho, Radiant Cleaners, Argonaut, Hunting Packs, and because they do that, they can talk to main contractors. I'm from the building industry, and they can talk to other clients together and refer each other. So many businesses want to do the same sort of thing around the whole country, and it might be that you can gain some business from someone who is a London-based business but has a Birmingham office type thing. So I would recommend you network with those people. I mean, you've been around 2 years. They may have been around a few more years, and you might be able to learn.
Thank you. Was it RePC, the other company? Yeah. That's the one. Excellent. Thank you. When I was more involved in talking to businesses, people would come to me and they say, I've got this great idea for a social enterprise. And I will say, well, someone else already does that. Don't you want to talk to them? Yes, but the problem with that approach is it doesn't bring the passion and when you've had the idea, you're obviously passionate to do it. So you might not want to collaborate with someone else. Exactly. Excellent. Brilliant. So thank you very much for all your questions. Thank you to the panel for your insight and input. And we'll end it there. Thank you.